Well, hello everyone. It's DBJ. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Thank you for joining me, you kind folks, community, and creatives out there. Today's our third day. It's World Building Wednesday. We're still continuing our theme of urban world building, urban development. And thanks for joining me. I'm going to let everyone start to get into the chat, and hopefully this will propagate out there. I will let you know that I may cut this slightly short. Here in Central Ohio, heck, across the U.S., 38 million people are being socked with rain and snow. In my neck of the woods, we got hit with a lot of snow. So I'm going to have to leave a little early just to get to work and such. But that's just personal things, whatever. But that being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me. We are going to continue our Hey, Vince, what's going on? Yeah, I'm glad you are feeling better. I hope it wasn't anything particularly serious, because that can be nasty. But anyway, world building. We're going to build ourselves a city. And what better way to build a city than to think of what goes into? Oh, okay, just the flu. Yeah. What better way to think of things than to figure out what goes into a city? Yeah, and it is. Yeah, this season, it is flu season. It's pretty nasty. Cali got it the worst. I think they've got like massive flooding, mudslides. It's pretty nasty. That's heck. I always talk about that, like, third pillar stuff. Like, we tend not to, in our role playing games, like, think about things like flu season and rain and flooding and mudslides and all the hassles that go with it. People's lives just being disrupted, and just how much just being sick will, like, just waylay you. I mean, it takes so much out of you. So we tend not to put that in role playing games. Not very fun. Heroes tend not to get very sick, except in passing narrative or something like that. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it's absolutely possible to insert that in the games. Oh, okay. I agreed to make a workshop in March about GMing a spontaneous session. I think I'll build a basic GM toolkit with them. If you got any tips to build encounters, combat, NPCs, or plots fast would be appreciated. Oh, fast. Yeah. Okay. Foolish Q says, I love diseases. It's the number one reason to make players nervous about looting. Yeah. Hey, the classic rot grub. That's where that stuff came from. Absolutely. Yeah. Nephrite says, man, all the snow melted here a day ago. I feel for you guys stateside. We're in pollution mode right now here in Poland. Cold and smoggy. Yeah, it's cold. Not as smoggy. It is quite overcast. I haven't seen too much daylight, but yeah, it's pretty nasty. Yeah. Nephrite says, I use pollution as an obstacle a lot in my games. And the thing is, that's a real thing. A lot of people consider California to be like, the Gold Coast. It's sunny and everyone's smiling and everyone's all like tanned and blonde and stuff like that. But if you go out there, the smog is so nasty. When you go up into the higher elevations, you can't see the city. It's not fog. It's actually smog that lays down in the valley. You can't see anything. It's pretty nasty. So since we're talking about this, yeah. Foolish Q said Californians cities have terrible smog for such a green place, which is why in many places, and Vince says in Germany, there are lots of people afraid of fine dust. So imagine ourselves like, that's why California is pushing or pushes for such green, I guess someone could call draconian methods to maintain greenery, because it's gotten so bad. So let's make that holistic, right? If we're going to design a city, it's going to have its own quirks and themes, and I don't know, it's going to have its own problems, even if the PCs don't see it as a problem if they visit this city, but the people there do. So, for example, if you have a city with a factory or an arcane tower, or an alchemist working on dangerous chemicals, or maybe it's in um, a sandy place on the border of a desert or a wasteland, some kind of barren landscape, or the fields have gone fallow, and now the normally uh, lush and green farmland may have gone dry, and now there's dust blowing in. That happened in the U.S. During the uh, oh, the name of it just went out of my head. I want to say it's called like the Black Blizzard, or it had a very simple, very dramatic name when people from other countries came here to go out into the Midwest and plant fields, and it was the Dust Bowl. Yeah, it was a Dust Bowl era, and the planting of those fields came true for one season, but then it killed the nutrients for the next season's planting, and it just, I mean, people were dying from the dust and the sweeping winds and things like that, and a lot of people fled from of the farmlands into the major cities because they couldn't support themselves farming, and a lot of people got sick and died trying to survive through the worst of the Dust Bowl era. Which, I mean, it's weird because hey, Mythos, yeah, it's weird because you would think that oh, sweet, okay, not a problem, and I'll get to that. I'll post up some photographs for you and send you some stuff. I have your Facebook information, so I'll put that up there. So not a problem. But yeah, it's just cities. I think it behooves us not to take a couple of notes, maybe some 3x5 cards, nothing too detailed, but overall give the city about 3 to 5 bullet points, something really easy to relate to. For example, the city is at thank you so much, man. You don't, please. No, first of all, I really appreciate it, but it's not necessary. And I go daily, so don't go broke, man. Like, I really appreciate super chats. I really do. Maybe this might be something that is like a call to arms of sorts from the people who are new. So I really appreciate what you're doing. Maybe because it will like it'll start like a cascade or something. Um, Dead Man Storyteller should save the donations for the yeah. I mean, I really no, honestly, I do appreciate it, but it's not necessary, man. Seriously, I do this for the interaction, but to be sure, a few bullet points I think is all you really need for the larger city as a whole, and then for different neighborhoods, a couple of bullet points, 3 to 5 bullet points for each particular neighborhood. So a city could be built on a cliffside. A city could be built in a major shipping lane. A city could be, you could have notes on the city. Thanks, Methos. Methos says, I feel like I'm robbing you. You're saving me hundreds of dollars on books. And that's very kind. But having some kind of thing that like makes your city unique, and you can make your city unique through the environment, like we talked about, dust, smog. It could be heavy fog in the morning. It could be smoke or something like that, something particulates in the air. It could be pollen or whatever. If you take your elements, earth, air, fire, water, fire, it could be very hot or cold. It could be near salt mines, so if people feel like have cracked and dry skin or something, it could be with earth. There could be mudslides or rock slides nearby. It could be, the city could be built in a region where the stone is very difficult to move, so the roads and streets and homes are built in and around these large chunks of rocks and boulders that cannot be moved. So you might have winding streets and strange elevations. It can be built in a valley or in a flat plain or lots of plateaus and things like that, depending on how exotic you want it to be. If you want to go far future, like building on Mars or something, it might be built in a deep valley with walkways or rope bridges or enclosed structures that stretch from one side to another. So for me, just having a few details that make this place special, whether it's the art, it's the entertainment here, it's people's behavior. Are people very quiet? Is there a certain type of dress? Are people paranoid about the police and the crackdowns? Are they paranoid about the extensive crime and trying to beware of themselves? Are they suspicious of strangers? Do they embrace strangers and the things that they bring into the city? Yeah. So yeah, thanks for the compliment. But it's not just me; it's everybody in the chat too, who's far smarter than myself. But bullet points are very easy thing, I think, to look at. Sometimes because simply by writing down or typing in, get a Google Doc or a OneNote doc or something like that. Sometimes the act of writing down or typing in your notes cements it in the head. Like, I'm a very visual person, so if I associate like some artwork that I've stolen online and thinks that it would be good for a game, the act of doing that cements it in my head, and I go, oh, okay, this port city is rife with crime, but this other port city is a hub of entertainment or education or something of that nature. Now, Mythos brings up underwater utopias like Gungan cities or Atlantis, and you don't have to have a mundane city. You can just take what we consider mundane and then turn the volume up to 11 and turn it into like underwater cities or cities built upside down, or floating in the air, or zero gravity, or jungles, dome city jungles in the middle of Arctic regions or things like that, or calderas where there's like dormant volcanoes filled with water, and there's like a vibrant lakeside community on the inside of the impact crater or something. Like, you can come up with a ton of these ideas and not be limited by that, especially if this is a role-playing game. You can do whatever you want. Now, if you're doing like a very gritty noir modern day crime investigation, it might not make much sense, but for the most part, we do fantastical things. So why not create fantastical cities? But those cities can still have strange things about them. Deadman brings up the aerostats on Venus. That's a perfect example as well. Vince says, yeah, currently stealing a ton of stuff for my workshop. Do you know a good method to build NPCs quickly? My favorite method is thinking of them as animals, the quick-witted fox or lazy hippo. That's really good. I feel like NPCs are real quick if it's like wants needs, like wants and needs, or desires and fears are a really good thing. Like you're saying, using animals, using the elements, and then like tying off of that, someone who is, like you said, quick-witted fox means that to somebody who might be sly. They might be very smart, like you said, quick-witted. They might be sneaky. They might be kind of like, their eyes might be shifty. Lazy hippo, maybe they're like, they've got some girth on them. I know what that feels like. They might be very patient. They might be devoted to their family. So that could be a very quick, easy method of using like animal traits. And of course, the NPC isn't the animal, but using those animal traits might be something like, take a bee, for example. Maybe they happen to be nosy, and they're a busybody. You know what I mean? They're constantly talking, buzzing in your ear about things, like, so that's a really good idea. I would not, for NPCs, I wouldn't attach a lot of their necessary information to who they are, so that it can be very fluid. So if you have a great NPC based around a fox, maybe they meet that person in the tavern, or they may meet them in a bakery. They might meet them in the blacksmith's shop. They might meet them in the stables, that kind of thing, as opposed to tying them to one location. Because if the PCs ignore that location, the NPCs going to waste. So I wouldn't tie one to the other. Mita says I would need to study the word the word of riffs, Vincent. Also not doing a half-ass realistic. I like to do 6 months a year from now, but worst case scenario. Yeah. Yeah, but seeing as this is a great community, will help it be even faster. That's awesome. The GIF. The GIF, Dungeons and Dragons, Spelljammer, the hippopotamus gentleman, firearm wielding, monocle having, double and triple breasted jacket donning, very large and tough race from Spelljammer. Yeah, if I'm describing that right. So again, details on the city, and a lot of the details should be foreshadowed. So, for example, when the PCs arrive, there should probably be a tavern. And we mentioned this yesterday. A tavern doesn't necessarily mean a drinking establishment. It should be the locus of social activity in the city, which represents a microcosm of the city at large, a place where they argue about politics. So the PCs get a little information about that. It could be a place that loves the arts and singing and dance. And so that might be something that they do inside this location, whether it's a bar or a tavern. It could be a tea house or a place on the docks, and a boat that's lashed to the docks where everyone goes to get drinks and supplies and maybe buy some equipment, new clothes, maybe some things that are far more illicit or what have you. But it could be in a unique location. It could be a popular eating hole establishment, maybe the first floor of a large and well-used inn or hotel or something of that nature. So yeah. Mythos even brings up treetop cities and forests, like the Wookiees of Kashyyyk. It's also a great idea for a city. Yeah, hell, in classic D&D, you've got the elves or other races that build in treetops or in the canopy of swamps or jungles, even places that are built across or around or even behind waterfalls, things like that. So I wouldn't ignore that at all, but to have these unique locations. And then I wouldn't go too deep into it, but maybe a little history for the city. Has the city been besieged by attackers? Did the city have to move? Is the city very old and the population's leaving? Is there the flu? Is there a disease spreading through the city at one point? Those kind of things. So yeah, Vince says, I think the animal idea is a great shortcut to meaning, because we all know how those animals are supposed to act, and then you only have to apply those traits to an NPC. It's more effective than just writing down traits. I think I just need to find more of these templates you can build NPCs with, as DBJ said, maybe deadly sins. Yeah, I mentioned that yesterday. Deadly sins, each person, and deadly sins, and maybe a number next to it. So I don't know. A 1 means someone's jealous of just their neighbor, whereas a jealousy of, I don't know, maybe 5 means that they're jealous of the world or something like that. And Nephrite brings up Mega City 1 as an example of a type of city. So okay, so let's break down some neighborhoods, right? A classic idea for neighborhoods would be the rich area and the poor area. The nobles, the aristocrats, the extremely wealthy, and you have your destitute, downtrodden, crime-ridden area. Those are your two, if you have to say, your pinnacle parts of cities where a lot of the action happens in your mass media, whether it's movies, comic books, graphic novels, your regular novels, television shows. But there's also things in between. You have yourself the places where people work, warehouses, factories, guild houses, city support services, whether it's water and fire or police, those kind of things. And then you have unique parts in cities as well. Yeah. Mythos says has some character flaws. I would absolutely tie the character traits and benefits to their flaws, so they're like one and the same. So someone who's very easy to get information from when like designing an NPC, I would also say that they're very nosy and gossipy, right? So you can get a lot of information about what you want from them, but they're also willing to spread the same information about you. Or the person who's jealous is also the person who helps uncover details about their neighbor, right? So I would tie the two together. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but I tie the two together. And some flaws might be internal and external. So someone may feel embarrassed about something that the rest of us are like, who cares? Or they may have like an addiction to something. They might have a tattoo from an old faction that they belong to, or they may have family members that are like embarrassing the family and or that are in trouble or something like that, taking care of a sick relative. So yeah, even maybe they have access to some blackmail information, and they're afraid to use it. So yeah, you could have all those kind of things. Vince brings up they had something like this in the Dark Eye. Each character had normal attributes, but also negative attributes like greed, fear of height, aggression, etc. Yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, and Foolish Kiwi tells Vince an astrology sign, like astrological signs would work if you're familiar with them, like Pisces, Gemini, yeah, that kind of thing. I even think with astrological signs that there's like the planetary systems, like Mars ascended and Saturn in retrograde or something like that. Like you could go a little bit with that. The old gods or heroes, they're pretty familiar with a lot of people. Greek and Roman gods, Jupiter, Zeus, that kind of thing. Hermes, yep. Nephrite brings not to mention tarot. Tarot cards are a great idea, Vince. Oh yeah, tarot cards are easy to use. Let me see if I don't know, I've got some old tarot cards. You've got like the dragon, the unicorn, the phoenix, the priestess, the king, the hermit. Sorry. Tarot cards from a game called Everway. They're just sitting in front of me. But anyhow, having you could get maps for cities as well, like I mentioned before about Googling some, but you could also do it. I know this might not be the most popular thing to say, but in a way, you may not need to draw out a city. What you probably want to do is just label very generically, like north, south, southeast, west, and central, and then detail some things about that. Like the west is borders on rivers, and then the north is crime ridden, and the south is for the avant-garde and arts and the bizarre people in the city. Maybe to the west are the rich people. It's strange to say, but in a odd sort of sense, human beings tend to think of north as where richer people live and south as poorer. That just might be the unconscious desire to move to places. So if you take a look at a lot of cities, the northern portions of the cities tend to be far more affluent than the southern portions of the cities, even though it doesn't really matter. But visually, we think of ourselves that way. So that might be a possibility as well. And then, of course, you have your environmental things. Like, for example, if the poorer people might live in the place worse hit by environmental problems, like mudslides or fires or severe congestion and starvation, whereas your richer people might live in the hills or on mountaintops or in a protected region or something of that nature. And you might flip that, say, like on the moon, rich people might have lived further away from, say, radiation, so they may live below cities, whereas the poor people might live above until things start to flip around or something. So yeah, you could do that too. Foolish Kiwi says, I personally like to draw out cities by going one district at a time. As players look for shops, if they find one, I add it to the map since they can't see what they don't know anyways. Yeah, that saves you a lot of time, a hell of a lot of time too. Don't detail. You don't really need to detail an entire city. You just need to detail what's in front of them, and you can narratively express to your players how far away one thing is from another. Just using it's close by, it's far away. It will take you a full day to get to the other side. And then add in little details like it's wide open spaces. There's narrow alleyways. It's very crowded. It's very open. There are scents, like things that you smell in the area. There's lots of food, things like that. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. Nephrite brings up, I can't remember who it was, I lost a link, but someone created a system of throwing down dice, and each die represented a district, the wealth of the people, the number of buildings, their height, etc. It's funny because I'm working on something like that, and I'm not sure if I saw it and stealing it, which I hope not. But yeah, like grabbing a bunch of dice and then rolling it. And I know the guys over at AbTab, Absolute Tabletop, they use a dice drop system for creating like their neighborhoods in Shadows over Drift Chapel and Oath of the Frozen King. So they use a system like that as well. But yeah, you can make up your own, right? Have each die represents a type of neighborhood, and then the die number that comes up represents something that's there. So yeah. Foolish Kiwi says, I mean, the building is already there, blank, but if it isn't key to the story, I leave it open for something interesting for the players to happen upon. I agree. I absolutely agree with that, especially about not detailing everything, just leaving it blank. And then, and of course, if you need some thugs to run to a safe haven, it's right there. If you need rich debutantes in a place for them, a shadowy place for them to have their meetings when they, I don't know, torture homeless or something, it's there. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too much of The Purge or whatever. Nephrite says, so a D20 would be a skyscraper, D4 a temple. It says a 4 and a D4 meant very religious, a 1 might mean corrupt, a D20 with a 1 would be a run down, low residence, a 20 might be mega rich, and so on. I know what you're talking about, and I don't remember where it's from, but it reminds me of something that's older. I don't know how you'd Google it to try to find it, but absolutely. Mythos brings up, you can add to big cities as you go. Because really the adventure is in front of the player's eyes, and maybe a little bit of details, especially if they're from the city or they have some kind of background that allows them to navigate a city. So, but the thing, if they pass by things that don't draw their attention, there's no need to, I hate to say it, but waste the time detailing it all. Although you could add details for them traveling. So if they're traveling by wagon, you can describe some things in the city. You could, if they're traveling by maglev or something, you can describe whether there's been fires or riots, or the place is very clean, or there's a lot of military moving around, or there are statues built by great artists or something. Like, there's murals painted on the walls dedicated to a great hero. Maybe there's banners or flags or giant posters of like the dictator that runs the city or something. So yeah. Foolish Kiwi also says you can also use blocks for measuring distance in urban settings, which is good for haphazardly measuring distances quickly in chases, etc. Yeah, because a lot of cities use it, and they may not use the same terminology, but I've always been used to blocks of, this standard block, which would be like a square, and each block, basically each intersection or stop sign represents a certain distance, and that distance tends to be relatively even. And so you could do that, and then when they get to a certain location, you can kind of like throw a little chaos in it, whether there's a circle or a park, or the cities are like confusing, and then when they move to another area, you can count the number of blocks you want them to travel to get to this other part of the city. Uh, Vince says, I mean, build a random city generator. He says Stars Without Number has a system to create a whole sector of space by random. There surely is a system that allows you to create cities already, but not how you do it. Right? Exactly. We can just add in as many details as we want if you want to make and especially if your cities are all in the same region, you could make like a couple of random tables where the random tables all apply to your city. So a city on Mars would be different than a city on in the bordering the Sahara Desert, right? They may both seem like they're barren, but they're all going to have their own little details. So yeah. Oh, you're having lots of lag. Sorry there, dude. Kiwi brings up city size also has a huge effect on things. Is it big enough to need public transport? If so, can they afford it, or is there rickshaws? Lots of details can be obtained from just logic once you have your setting. And for example, the idea of, is it Uber or rickshaws? Are there bicycles and motorcycles, or is there lots of public transportation? If there isn't, is it crowded? Like someone would picture like the city streets of Hong Kong or Japan, or is it crowded like New York City and it just seems to be a lot of chaos? Are there homeless living on the streets? Are there street performers, say in like Las Vegas or California? How heavily is the city monitored by law enforcement? Do they crack down on people sitting on the streets, or do they not care just as long as you're not harming anyone? So yeah. It could be any of those things, and it could be weather related for your lag there, Vince. Not sure, but it could be that, or just could be YouTube just acting up. Misa says, I mean, if they haven't explored parts of a huge metropolis yet, that's what I meant. Oh yeah. If they haven't explored, you don't need to detail it out, because unless you are an avid world builder and you're doing it for yourself, you may be disappointed if you detail out like 257 buildings and neighborhoods and the people that live in them if the players don't go in there. Damn, flu really does affect everything. I hear you, Vince. Yeah, Mythos says in Star Wars campaigns you can invent a planet. Yeah, it's the mono planet idea, right? It's the jungle planet or the ice planet or the underworld, like literal physically subterranean planet or something like that, right? It's the rainforest planet, and you could have that kind of thing if you want to do like a mono city. But I think a little more detail for that, like how do people eat? How do people get their necessities? Where do they live? Where do they get their food and water from? And how is it distributed? Is it just a big open city and people just go to stores and buy it? Or is it disseminated out by a larger leadership? Do people gather it themselves? That kind of thing. Okay, let's see if I can pronounce this. Un dos stress curato. Un dos stress curato? I hope I'm butchering the hell out of that. Says some books with rules for making cities. Vorheim for medieval cities and augmented reality for cyberpunk ones. There's also Scenic Dunsmith, a module played with a randomly generated town. I hope you're mentioning actual... because you can't put links into the chat, but I hope you're mentioning actual products or things online that people can use. So if you guys can do some Google foo on that'd be awesome too, for creating like randomly generated towns and things like that. And I hope I didn't butcher your name there. Undo. Mythos says, so the computer gave you the it's whatever. So also let's remember that cities also have like a personality to them as well. Nephrite said, Nephrite get some more details. So Vorheim is Zach S. And Scenic Dunsmith is also what is that? LOT. Why is my brain just shut down? I was about to say Lord of the Rings. Wow. My brain just shut down. Sorry. Lamentation. Thank you. Wow, I just could not think of Lamentations. All I could think of was the first thing I thought of was Conan, and I was like, "It's what the hell am I talking about?" Anyway, because Conan mentions the lamentations of the women, and I couldn't get Conan out of my head. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, so Netflix says easy. It's an easy Google. Yeah, cities are Mythos brings up cities are live breathing things. Yes, Lamentations of the Flame Princess has of Warnheim and Scenic Dunsmith, and now some people might be like Zach S or whatever's going on with that, but I'm I read up some of the drama, and I know that dude, if he's the writer, has he's got some drama surrounding him, but whatever. Undo, yeah, thank you, thank you for letting me understand that I didn't. Well, I'm probably sure I butchered the name, but I hope I'm not being rude. But yeah, cities are living, breathing things, and things can affect them. So, for example, people like to travel through cities in the least. They like to make pathways through cities that are the least stressful. So you may have like large boulevards to get from one place to another. You may have large meeting places like parks or abandoned lots or specific parts of the city that, even though the residents there or the businesses there or the activity there may not want them, that the people during certain parts of the day may travel back and forth. So, for example, New Jersey gets a bad rap that when you're driving on the highways, you see nothing but like smog and factories belching out steam and just like rusted iron and concrete. But if you leave the highways, it's pretty lush and green and well-to-do. But you never see that from traveling the main byways. So you might have like roads or streets or avenues or boulevards that might be full of like stores and shops or things for people to interact with, whether there's street entertainers or pickpockets or something. But when you leave, when you leave the main thoroughfares, things might be completely different. And based on that, you might have different attitudes. For example, cities that get lots of visitors, you tend to have a big split between the people who work and live there to handle all the visitors, through the vacationers that try to come to the city, and you have the people who live there that get annoyed that all these people visit. Millions of people visit over and over and over again. Like a Las Vegas or a Disney World or something like that, and such places. I'm sure the Eiffel Tower gets that. The people who live there are just rolling their eyes when yet another flood of ignorant visitors comes in that are rude. But then that maintains the money that comes in from visitors, maintains it. So yeah, you could have something like that as well. Nephrite says Wormwood in Rifts is the living planet. That could be used for a living city easily. And Foolish Kiwi says, I love Lamentations of the Flame Princess. One of the few systems I feel really at home in besides 3.5. I have not dived into Lamentations, but from all accounts, everybody that I associate with loves the game. So I haven't deep dived into it, and I know there are free rules and there's lots of extraneous things that they've created for it, and I know it's a hack of the basic Dungeons and Dragons, but I've never dived into it, never played it or anything, which is weird because I'm kind of into that kind of thing, rules light systems, that kind of stuff. Misa says, anyone remember how it felt seeing Mos Eisley for the first time? Ben summed it up with Up, and the bar scene was just wow. Like that bar scene is a perfect example of the microcosm of what Tatooine is like. This backwater place with people who are corrupt and soldiers that like half enforce the law, half ignore the petty crimes that are going around. With the Empire, like, we're looking for, these are the droids we're looking for, and they're completely ignoring all the other crime that's going on, mainly because they're benefiting from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hashtag Han shot first. Oh, hell yeah. Of course, of course. Um, Kiwi says, here there's animals in the road a lot. Chickens, cows, deer, not quite like traffic, but it's still spooky at night. you know, we tend to ignore those kind of things too. Cats, squirrels, wild dogs might be in the area. Insects, bats at night. Despite the fact of having big cities, there might be wild animals, or the population may have a desire for a certain type of animal. So for like people breed dogs and cats, or maybe horses, or certain types of mounts, or breeding certain types of animals they can eat, like cows and chickens. There could be seagulls. If you ever been to the East Coast of the United States, you don't feed the seagulls. They are vicious. Although people like to throw up Alka-Seltzers, I think it explodes in their stomachs and kills them or something, which is kind of nasty. You're not supposed to do that. But my point being is that every region has their own foibles, and writing down a couple of little traits would be kind of cool. For example, I brought up the other day in Florida, they do actually have alligators. Now, they might not be very large, but alligators and snakes, if you live near a swamp, might be a thing. And people might just be used to it, right? Spiders or scorpions or something. And people are like, oh, there's a sidewinder snake. Watch your foot. And then the visitors are just like, what the hell? But that might be a thing. Having mosquito nets when you sleep may be a thing if there's lots of mosquitoes, and the visitors may or may not be used to it. So those details are probably cool too. I would just put bullet points about it, like, city, swampy area, dangerous animals, question mark, mosquitoes, disease, humidity, that kind of thing. Foolish Kiwi kind of agrees with me. Also, city animals in real life, for example, pigeons have adapted over time and become great to blend in with the surroundings. There's almost no difference between doves and pigeons. Are you sure? Doves were extinct, and pigeons were a bane on society. I thought pigeons were like the garbage disposal and roaches of the world or something. No, that's messing with them. But yes, pigeons have adapted, and they are like the avian world's survivalists, other than maybe like seagulls and those kind of things. But yeah, pigeons have completely adapted to humanity, to the point that they are that pigeons are comfortable around humanity. They know where to find like food droppings. They'll come up to people to beg for food. All kinds of things. Ducks will do that too, especially if they've migrated to areas where people feed them in the park. So they become used to, people throwing them breadcrumbs or crackers and those kind of things. And they also have adapted to eating pretty nasty human foods as well. But that's a real thing, right? Maybe a long time ago, I remember having a video, and we were talking about a city where people wear hats with straw and string and doodads in it, and birds, for the purpose of allowing birds to fly down and steal something from your hat. And it would be a good omen for them to steal things for their nests. So the people don't hate the birds, they actually love them. And that could be really cool too. Betho says an arrangement could be made that the empire were the good guys, the Senate could get things done, and as long as you went anti-empire, most citizens had it. As long as you went anti-empire, most citizens had it pretty good. That's a common thing too, right? Lots of governmental institutions make deals with criminal elements, even though we may not see it, to get things done. That happened a hell of a lot during World War II, where the Japanese made deals with and the Americans made deals with the Yakuza and the mob, respectively. And then after the war, they continued those relationships. I believe the Americans made deals with the Yakuza. So yeah, that's absolutely a thing. And also, you need release valves. Whether we like it or not, most cities need a place for people's vices to be released, and keeping control of those vices is the problem, not getting rid of it. So you need red light districts. You need places where there's prostitution and drugs and gambling and things. And I'm not saying that anyone wants those things, but they will crop up, and trying to keep them located in specific areas might be the thing. Kiwi says doves are also diseasey. They're just prettier, so people like them more. Of course. If it looks cute, no, there really isn't any protective force for like cockroaches or whatnot and rats, but everyone loves to protect like the pretty animals, right? The kittens and the puppies and the pure white doves. No one's going around protecting pigeons. Yeah. Undo says the pigeons are flying rats. With a period at the end, right? Yeah, exactly. They sure are. And they're diseasey, but they don't suffer from the diseases, which is a thing as well. Nephrite says gulls sweep out of the sky on the south coast of England and steal food from the hands of children. Ice cream cones, for example. Oh, hell yeah, they do that here. Yeah. Oh man. Seagulls, man, they are brutal. They will steal things right out of your hand. We've seen people visit the coast, and they'll specifically go to places to buy like French fries and throw them in the air, and then all of a sudden you'll see like 20 seagulls swoop in and steal the food right out of their bags, right out of their hands. They'll steal it off of tables. It's pretty brutal. Full foolish is talking about the Sith. I'm actually on the side of the Sith. They were the good guys, kind of. At least we're a lot better at making peace long term. Ooh, that's nasty, man. but true if you think about it. But true. Although they did crush people under their heel, so there were some innocent sacrifice. So it depends on your morality. Like, you sacrificed a few for the many. Foolish Q says, "Oh, DBJ, that's an interesting one. For example, where I live, gambling is illegal, so everyone goes out on boats and gambles in the water where it's technically legal because it's not on Texas soil." And you know what? That's exactly how Las Vegas came to be. The criminals created their own city and therefore manipulated their own legal system when the city grew up around it. So that's why Las Vegas is one of the few places where prostitution is technically legal because it's not illegal. But like you said, technicalities are a big thing too. Texas, gambling is illegal. So I'm forgive me because I'm going to generalize very much, but you may have a city that has a very conservative outlook, maybe through religion or through the legal system. When I say conservative, I mean it may have a desire not to engage in the vices, right? No public forms of no PDA, no public displays of affection. You have to dress, scantily dressing and that kind of thing. You might have behaviors that are seen as being very conservative, but technically the gambling, etc., could happen in the water since it's not on the land and get away with it, and then thereby skirting the rules, even though we all know what the rules are. We have that here or close by in Indiana. There's gambling in Indiana, but they built the casino over the river. So it's not technically in Indiana where it is technically illegal to have gambling in casinos, but they built the casino on stilts over the river away, I don't know, maybe 200 feet away from the Indiana border. Even though we here in Central Ohio, we do have casinos now because it was voted in. You could create something like that in the city where it's the blow off valve for the city, and the people might be against the blow off valve, per se, because it could spread like a scummy donut. It's like it starts to spread in and around the city and trying to control it. But if you bring it up publicly, people are like, "Oh, we want to get rid of it." But the city leaders might be like, "Man, if we get rid of this thing, it's going to spread into the deeper regions." I'm sorry. Mythos goes on to say, Alderaan, they secretly were preparing for war. They did have weapons. Leia was lying to Tarkin, and he knew it. Okay, all right. You guys are deep diving into Star Wars and stuff, which is fine. I love Star Wars, but yeah, it goes on to say, in my opinion, anything you do as an adult with your own body should be legal, and that could be an issue, right? If you have a larger populace that feels like they want to legalize things, if you have a large legally oppressive community, that could be where you get some of your conflict, right? So because we're creating cities in an RPG, so you need conflict, and conflict is where the drama and the action comes from. Having mono cities, like the city is completely nice and there's no drama here at all, is pretty boring. So you do want to have those conflicts, whether people smile in your face and think everything's nice, but there's like a hidden underworld or under realm of how people act. Mythos says, Kiwi says, for religious reasons, there's also no liquor stores in city limits where I am. Yeah, we still have no liquor selling on Sundays here. And there used to be regions that we had counties here that were dry. You had to leave the county to go buy alcohol and then drive back in. So those are things too. Beatha says, well, I wouldn't do drugs or sell my body for sex. I don't think nonviolent crimes should make you rot in prison. And of course, you know, it's the personal versus the group. People's personal freedoms versus the group. Sometimes people's personal freedoms, their particular choice of freedom infringes on other people's freedom. So you end up making laws against it because the one ruins it for everyone else. That's usually how it happens. One murderer ruins it for everybody else. So you make draconian laws. One person playing loud music means no one can be loud. You know, one person who I don't know, starts gunfire in a park means everyone's off limits to the park at night. You know, it's always the one ruins it for everyone. And then everyone who wants to still have their freedoms now has to fight to get their freedoms back. So yeah, it's usually the few that ruins it for the many. And no matter which political method you're looking at, right? Nitho says, I'm Christian, but I don't push my beliefs on others. This is why I'm talking about, this is all related to world building. Yeah. So, excuse me, we're getting to the point where I'm going to have to leave a little bit. We're going to end it about 10 minutes early, just because there is some snow out there. So, and want to talk to the wife before she ends up getting up and leaving and stuff. So, guys, sorry to cut it a little bit shorter, but we have gone a bit long. So, guys, thank you very much for coming up with a ton of ideas. I hope we helped you out a little bit, Vincent. I know you're feeling better, but I hope it's not making your brain too cloudy. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining me. Tomorrow's Third Pillar Thursday. So we're going to talk about cities and some interesting and really cool locations for people to have adventures in. Guys, thank you very much. I will see you later. See you tomorrow.